Explore what they don't tell you about twisted thoughts. This morning's lesson is drawn from my adaptation of the fifth passage of Zapatul Rinpoche's The Heart Treasure of the Enlightened Ones. Together, let's chant. Alas for the people in this age of residues. The mind's awesome core of truth has withered, and people live deceitfully. So their thoughts are warped, their speech is twisted. They cunningly mislead others who can trust them. Over the past 10, 15 years, John Green has crept into our collective consciousness. John Green is an intelligent, funny, soulful author of young adult fiction. He has been very successful, and he has shared the wealth with family and with causes that he feels are important. And he even, recognizing himself as a geek and as a nerd, he even developed a charity called Nerd Fighteria, which is just awesome. And of course, he popularized the phrase, "Don't forget to be awesome." And it is because of him that we have several wonderful channels on YouTube. In one of my favorite videos featuring John Green, he explains that some people are more successful than other people. And when people reach a certain degree of success, sometimes they take all the credit. They forget that in addition to talent and hard work, there's also blind stinking luck. And then blinded or perhaps intoxicated by their privilege, they look at others with less privilege or perhaps no privilege and assume that while these people with privilege are assuming they deserve the privilege, they look at others without privilege and assume they don't deserve it. This is nothing new. Since the Neolithic Revolution, since the advent of civilization, the line, the gap, the chasm between those with and those without have grown wider and wider and wider. The tragedy that there is a minority, quote unquote, above the law, subjugating the majority under the law, is nothing new. We even see it written about in the 81 poems of the Tao Te Ching, which predate the Buddha by about a century. Back in the 90s, I remember listening to a song, I'm not sure if it was punk or a borderline punk, but it's by a group that had, ironically, a mainstream hit, but they had a very punk song. And I'm going to do a terrible paraphrase. But at one point you hear an angry father scolding what sounds like an adolescent child. And the line is, "Why did you leave the keys upon the table? You wanted to." And there are many small-hearted and weak-minded parents who are angry for whatever reason, and they seek to take that anger out upon an adolescent child whose prefrontal cortex is still not fully formed, and attributing everything they do or didn't do to their free will, to their malice, thereby in the mind of the abusive parent justifying whatever cruelty they mete out is a form of necessary punishment. That is not unique to pathological parents. We see that wherever patriarchy rears its head. And patriarchy, although literally might refer to men subjugating women in all sorts of horrible and unacceptable manners, spiritual patriarchy, metaphoric patriarchy, refers to anyone, regardless of the shape of the reproductive plumbing, anyone who is a devotee, who thinks it's wonderful to be rigid and fearful and controlling and elitist and cryptic and competitive and cruel. These people love power. And they will gladly mutilate the truth to justify their power and their cruelty. Think of it this way. A member of spiritual matriarchy would say, truth is the source of authority. A member of patriarchy, spiritual patriarchy, would say, authority is the source of truth. It's true because I said it's true. And that is dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. And the people, just like the old saw of the lunatics taking over the asylum, minions of patriarchy, like moths to a porch light, are drawn to positions of perceived power and authority. And so they have established the philosophy and the religion and the theology and the psychology that espouses free will. You and I are not living in the Iron Age. You and I are living in the Silicon Age, and thanks to fantastic technology that allows for medical imaging, we understand that if someone has seizures, it's most likely due to epilepsy, a physiological disorder, and not because they've been consorting with demons. To punish someone for seizures at this day and age is an absurdity and a crime. But what has that to do with this passage? Alas, for the people in this age of residues, the mind, source, and core of truth is withered, and people live deceitfully. Their thoughts are warped, their speech is twisted, they cunningly mislead others. Who can trust them? If a loved one has Tourette's, we are not surprised when they twitch and cuss. In a wonderful book that I often cite, The New Human Rights Movement by Peter Joseph, the author cites peer-reviewed studies that show that there is no free will, and that our behaviors, both beneficial and pathological, are not because of our own innate goodness or badness. They simply are, and we are either fortunate or unfortunate. Blind, stinking luck. As a child, me and my little sister had privileged education. We did not earn that. We just found ourselves in that situation. Me and my sister were born into a wealthy, powerful country. We did not earn that. It just happened. We could have been born in Palestine. We could have been born in the Congo. We had no control over that. Furthermore, again, studies have shown, anthropological studies have shown, that there's a great difference between chimpanzees and bonobos. Bonobos live a really groovy lifestyle. They live in an external matriarchy. There's very little, if no, conflict. And things are settled through sexual negotiations. It's pretty cool. The chimpanzees are pretty much psychotic bastards who will maim and murder at the drop of a hat. They share a common ancestor. The primary difference between them is their environment. Bonobos live in safety and plenty, and the chimpanzees live in peril and scarcity. Functional magnetic resonance imaging studies have demonstrated that the more actual scarcity an organism is exposed to, the more apt their blood mass is to pool at the bottom of the brain in a region known as the amygdala, which is the seat, which functions as the seat of anxiety and aggression. Those raised in scarcity fMRI studies have shown have an, I'm going to use an unfortunate term, but an insufficient degree of prefrontal cortex development, largely. So I'm going to be very crude here and very simplified. They aren't poor because they're dumb. They're dumb because they're poor. And that's not true 1,000% of the time. There are exceptions. But largely, our circumstance affects our brain and our behavior and our experience. When we see people who are deceitful and warped and malicious, we should treat them the way we would treat someone with Tourette's. We understand their pathology. We do not condemn them for it. And this is getting into some controversial waters. Think about, if you will, about the early 1900s, the late 1800s, and typhoid. There was a carrier of typhoid who was not affected by typhoid, and she is known as Typhoid Mary. My understanding is that she was treated abominably badly. And that's wrong. It's not her fault she was a carrier. It's not her fault she carried the disease. True, she needed to be separated from society, but that doesn't mean she didn't need to be, that she could not have been treated with dignity and care to have her physical and mental needs met. There's a wonderful movie I really enjoy. I forgot the name of the director. He's pretty famous, Mike something. And the name of the movie is Where to Invade Next. And basically it shows how there's wonderfully progressive ideas that were originated in America. They have been embraced abroad and then forsaken by America. And one of them is having a prison system that is designed not to be punitive, but to be but to focus on rehabilitation. Not surprisingly, countries that focus on true rehabilitation have a low recidivism rate. Countries that focus on punishment have a high recidivism rate. So that if the proof of the pudding is in the testing, then the very fact that punishment does not heal, but rehabilitation does, proves that free will is a myth. Judging people, hating people, being cruel to people because of because of things out of their control is lazy-minded, grotesque, and benefits no one. We can be both compassionate and wise. We can be empathetic to people who are a danger to themselves and society, while also humanely separating them from society, while also doing what we can to heal them, their bodies and their behaviors. Although that 100% rehabilitation might not necessarily be possible, to strive to is important. A great luminary whose name eludes me said that, I think it was Gandhi, but I'm not sure. A civilization is judged by how it treats the weakest and most disempowered amongst them. When we choose to revile and exploit those who are disadvantaged, that is an indictment on our culture. When we choose to nurture and protect the disadvantaged, that is our exoneration. Few of us are world leaders. Few of us are potentates with the ability to strike a gavel and change humanity. But in our own little corner of the world, we can be a voice for reason. The meditations we're going to play with this morning help to facilitate the transition from being cruel to being kind. I do look forward to chanting and meditating with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome. Oopsies, I got ahead of myself. For more than 30 years, I spent more than 8 hours a day, every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. This morning, let's play with the very latest iteration of Shakyamuni's very easy Dzogchen. Last night I added 2 graphics, which I think will aid the comprehension. For the remainder of the live stream, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in the chat window. Well, my devices sure are chirping this morning. Together, let's review the mantra's meaning, as well as train in bliss and love and letting go. Please press your palms and place your hands in the puckered palm position in front of your chest and chant with me. With whom we metaphorically invoke the example of the Muni, wise one, Muni, wise one. Maha, greatly wise one, Muni, yea, of the Shakya Soha, wishing enlightenment for all. For the remainder of this practice, we're going to be bringing the spontaneous play of mind, kicking and screaming into the path of awareness and letting go. This path is known by several names, including Dzogchen's Great Completion Stage, Sutra Mahamudra, Ati Yoga, and Trekcho, which translates literally into slicing through the duality of hope and fear. So we're going to flip-flop back and forth between mantra meditation and silent meditation. During our inhalation, let's silently and mentally recite, relaxing into the awareness of this. But what is this? This is whatever spontaneously occurs between your ears, whether it is the perception of a sight or a sound or a sensation or a flavor or a scent or the like, or it is an emotion, an intention, a thought, a memory, or an imagining. We simply label it as this. During our exhalation, we strive to physically relax as best we can while chanting this 12-syllable mantra 4 times per breath. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Yesuwa. 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 One of my spiritual heroes is a dead Tibetan known as Zampo Trul Rinpoche. As a young man, he studied all the techniques and teachings of Tibet, and he was quite fundamentalist. But as the decades elapsed, after approximately 60 to 80 years of continued study and practice and teaching, he evolved from being a fundamentalist to a liberal, from being yang to yin, from patriarchy to matriarchy. And his personal practice evolved and his teaching evolved. He went from teaching, all the tricks and all the details to teaching in a manner which echoes the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha taught that full enlightenment could be accomplished in as little as a week. You can't earn a PhD in a week. To master anything in a week, it's got to be stripped down and easy. And that's what Zampo Trul Rinpoche did. He taught a very easy method to become the people that our dogs already think we are. And I'm reminded of a quip attributed to Albert Einstein, that any educated idiot can make things more complicated, more difficult, and more violent. But that it takes a lot of courage and a little bit of genius to move in the opposite direction. I've noticed that in my own life. I've noticed that in the lives of my students. I've noticed that in the lives of the great spiritual luminaries, such as Zampo Trul Rinpoche, who was lauded by the 14th Dalai Lama, who, rumor has it, knows a thing or two. Having introduced you to mantra meditation, I'd like to begin a 4-step process to introducing you to silent meditation in a way that will set you up for success. Lots of people delight in setting people up for failure. I just don't have the intestinal fortitude for that. As children, most likely the first bicycle we received came with training wheels, which, although were clunky, got the job done. Similarly, our first step on the path of the mastery of silent meditation is going to be ungainly. Let us think for a moment about mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are involuntarily and automatically accessing our sympathetic nervous system. It is found not in the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears, but rather in our spinal cord, specifically in the thoracic region associated with our rib cage, despite the nuances of this artist. It did not evolve to support either extreme of mind blinking or concentration. Instead, It simply evolved to notice, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Perhaps this vulnerability is that which is exemplified by the nudity of the archetype of meditation known in Sanskrit as Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri Karma Mundara. So now that we've got a good idea about this whole mindfulness thing, let's answer the question, how are we going to practice Sati Passatis, mindfulness and meditation, the 7th and 8th folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path? Easily. During each inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. And during each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Now, there are many fundamentalists who will teach you must concentrate upon the breath. But people who are on the path of yin, the path of being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, feel like I'm missing an adjective, and kind, would say no, we simply use our breath as a metronome. We don't control it. We don't concentrate upon it. But when we notice that we're breathing in, there's something we can silently and mentally recite. And when we notice that we're breathing out, there's something else we can silently and mentally recite. And no, Virginia, these are not affirmations. They do not pertain to belief or magical thinking. They're simply ways to describe the natural processes already occurring. And all we're doing is aligning the intention of our great big squishy 3-pound supercomputer between our ears with the mechanisms already in play within the various facets of our spinal cord's autonomic nervous system. Let's return to our mantra meditation. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa 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 Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. Let us remove the first of two metaphoric training wheels, reducing the length of our contemplative exercises from 12 syllables down to just 3. Before we explore Chan's mindfulness and meditation, let's take a moment to take a deeper look at this thing we call meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, or whether we mean to or not, we access the parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord, corresponding to our pelvic region, and the tippy top of our cervical region, corresponding either to the top of our neck or the bottom of our head. It has evolved not for active contemplation, but for passive physical relaxation and mental release. Let's explore this figuratively. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. It could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, a perfectly reasonable question is this: what is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although is non-graspable to the hand, is which is all sorry about that, folks, which although is tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand. And there you have it. Emptiness, voidness, demystified. Perhaps all of this, to communicate all of this blathering I just subjected you to, is the reason why this archetype of meditation, known in Tibet as Kuntu Zangpo, Kuntu Zangmo, Yabiyam, is depicted as being translucent and rather non-graspable. How then are we going to practice Chan's mindfulness and meditation? Easily. During our inhalation, let us silently and mentally recite sitting tall, thus reminding our body to generate a vertical traction between our thuchas and our head. During each exhalation, let us silently and mentally recite relaxing. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. 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 We come to our third step on the path to the mastery of meditation. Before we explore dhyana, let us consider a profoundly wonderful fringe benefit of effortless mindfulness and meditation. And that is that it disperses the blood that pools or gathers at our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression, and causes it instead to gather at a bench of tissue described as the anterior cingulate gyrus, just a few centimeters back from our forehead. This hunk of meat serves as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy. Those who focus on concentration and contemplation experience crankiness, and they strive to force love, but all they're able to generate or contrive is an analog. Like those beautiful red tomatoes you buy at the store that are tasteless and scentless, but look pretty. Ironically, those who practice mindfulness and meditation correctly experience spontaneous love. And it's been said that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. Perhaps that is why the meditation archetype known in English as all good one, father and mother, in tantric union, or depicted as beautiful. How are we going to rest in dhyana's mindfulness and meditation? Simply. As we, come here, machine, don't do that. As we inhale, we're going to silently and mentally recite, notice this. And as we exhale, we're going to silently and mentally recite, relaxing. As we do, we will find ourselves observing the duality of samsara as well as the non-duality of nirvana. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. 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 We come now to the fourth step on the path of meditation mastery, where we remove the second of two metaphoric training wheels, thus reducing the length of our exercise from 3 syllables down to just 1. Welcome to this morning's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. So how are we going to practice before we practice the great seal of mindfulness and meditation, let's take a deeper look at the meditation archetype, playfully nicknamed cloud-colored gal and sky-colored guy doing the hibbity-dibbity. Observe, notice how Cloud Gal is sporting in wild abandon, reminding us that spontaneity trumps contrivance. Observe the peaceful way her partner enjoys the same tantric union, reminding us that spontaneity need not be scattered. Instead, it could be centered. When our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity, our life could very much become like a real or imagined Buddha's paradise, or Vati, or Pure Land, or perhaps a painting by Maxfield Parrish. How are we going to practice the great seal of mindfulness and meditation? As we proceed, during each inhalation, as we perceive, or I should say, during each inhalation, we're going to notice our perception as silently and mentally we recite the demonstrative pronoun this. And during each exhalation, we're going to notice our mental release while we silently and mentally recite the 1-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. You see, my friends, even though both mindfulness and meditation take place in the spinal cords, the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears is kind of like a hyperactive kid that wants to get in on the action, causing more harm than help. But when we give it something to do, hey, brain, say this during the inhalation, say ease during the exhalation, all of a sudden the brain has this opportunity to stop interfering with the autonomic nervous system and begin cooperating with it. Now that we've reached contemplative cruising altitude, together as a team, let us meditate as transformatively as Luke Skywalker on Dagobah under the guidance of Yoda. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Yesawa. Om Muni Muni Ma 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 Muni Yesawa. The proper English translation of this archetype is all good one, mother and father. Why do we call them the all good ones? Are they gods and goddesses to be worshipped? No. They are reminders. We already possess the mechanism to notice. We already possess the mechanism to release. We already possess the mechanisms necessary for love's centered spontaneity. In Dzogchen, when we talk about remembering that we're already enlightened, that is a metaphor. We already have all the equipment we need to master the path. And we can do so in a remarkably short period of time. Welcome to this morning's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist chanting, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. We flip-flop between mantra meditation and silent meditation. Here's the easy way to do mantra meditation. By the way, it's also the most effective way. As you breathe in, please silently and mentally recite, relaxing into the awareness of this. Excuse me, and a perfectly understandable question is, what's this? This is whatever we notice in the moment, whether it is external or internal or physical or mental or pleasurable or painful or interesting or boring or glorious or grotesque. During our exhalation, we do our best to physically relax while chanting this 12-syllable mantra 4 times per breath. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. How are we going to rest in Proto-Zen's mindfulness and meditation? Simple. During our inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and during our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. In the Star Wars galaxy, the basic difference between a true Sith and a true Jedi is this. The Sith wish to use the Force as a tool to get what they want and avoid what they dread. A true Jedi, a great Jedi like Qui-Gon Jinn, basically strives to be a servant of the Force and to flow with the Force and be an instrument of the Force's will. To put it more cryptically, the Sith force things. The Sith are about force. The true Jedi are about flow. Let's continue. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Let us rest in the great coalescence of perception and release. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa 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 Let us rest in Mahasandhi's mindfulness and meditation. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa 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 Let us rest in the great completion stage of mindfulness and meditation. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa 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 Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. So let us take a moment to consider this image. There are many, many mantras in the meditation world at large. There are many meditation mantras in the subset of Buddhism. Each mantra has its own energetic signature, its own effect on our bodies. I've selected this mantra because it seems to be the most conducive for my body. And so that means that, if this is not conducive for you, you'll probably want to find another teacher. I don't say this out of cruelty. I want you to be happy and healthy and to work with practices that help you to thrive as much as you can. So this image, we could look at it literally and say, oh, this is a person or it's a god and we're going to worship it. You could, but doing so opens up a can of worms. Doing so thrusts us into the rigidity of belief, which is the doorway to the path of being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, which I really don't recommend. If you want to be, peaceful, groovy, and loving, different path. So I like to look at this simply as an archetype whose iconography can remind us of things. The legs arranged in what some people call the Vajra position or the full lotus position remind us of mindfulness and meditation, that they're both required. One's not better than the other. Just as I've never seen a one-winged bird take to the sky, if all we do is practice mindfulness or all we do is practice meditation, nirvana we will not taste. This cushion is the color of the moon and reminds us of compassion. This lotus reminds us of the purity that comes from letting go. This bowl, this begging bowl, reminds us that when one is devoted to the Eightfold Path, one's needs are taken care of. Maybe not the way you think they should, or in the timetable you think they should, but in the overall scheme of things, one's needs are met. This person is depicted as wearing an outer robe and an inner robe, are an upper robe and a lower robe. There is a small aura surrounding the head and a large aura centered on the heart. There are some who would say this reminds us that we need both love and wisdom, and that it's wisdom that is the first fold of the Eightfold Path, but love that is the second fold of the Eightfold Path. Let's continue. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Let us rest in Dzogchen's great completion stage of mindfulness and meditation. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Sadly, Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything is crap, which includes meditation teachers and which includes monasteries. 90% of monasteries, 90% of meditation teachers are entrenched in yang, entrenched in pseudo-spiritual patriarchy. They are, not only are they rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, but they want you to be as well. The minority are upon the path of being flexible, loving, laid back, lucid, egalitarian, cooperative, and kind. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Let us practice the utmost union of mindfulness and meditation. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. 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 Let us rest in Ati Yoga's utmost union of mindfulness and meditation. Let's seal this morning's practice by training in love and letting go. May all master letting go and love. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. Soha. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. May all master kind communication, conduct, and commerce. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. 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 May all master the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. 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 May all master mindfulness and meditation. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. 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 If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the force be with you always.